Hello, friends. I'm sharing with you the Yom Ha-Atzma'ut service from our prayer book, Mishkan T'filah. And uh, if you have the Shabbat volume at home, note that this service is found in the other volume, the weekday and festival volume. Yom Ha-Atzma'ut commemorates the 5th of Iyar, which is Israel Independence Day, as Israel declared its own independence on the 5th of Iyar. And we remember that day. In Israel itself, Yom HaAtzma'ut is preceded by Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, which for much of Israel's history, um, there have been very few Israelis who do not know anyone who has served in the defense forces or who has given his or her life for the cause of independence and sovereignty of Israel. So Yom HaZikaron is a very solemn day, a sad day, a very important day, and it reminds us of the human costs and the cost to the Jewish people of settling, reclaiming, and sustaining the land of Israel as the modern state of Israel. Yom HaZikaron gives way at sundown immediately to Yom HaAtzma'ut, a day of celebration, a day of parades, flyovers, of dancing in the streets. And we commemorate both of them together on Yom HaAtzma'ut in the diaspora that is outside of the land of Israel. But we must remember those who gave their lives, those heroes, those who sacrificed themselves for the future of the Jewish people as they understood that creating a modern state of Israel was essential in Jewish identity in our own day. The poet Chana Senesh, who was a young immigrant to Palestine and then served behind enemy lines in Europe during World War II, and left us a legacy of wonderful, wonderful poetry. Chana Senesh wrote, "Build upon sand, under the blue sky, everything anew, everything anew. And know, costly is the road to the just and the true." There were many Jews who were ambivalent about creating a new modern sovereign state of Israel from the inception of the Zionist movement in the late 19th century uh, up to and including this very day, although the reasons may have changed. And Professor Dina Weiss has an answer that I think you may find very helpful. She writes, "We're accustomed to approaching the question of ownership of the land through the lens of title and tenancy. Who lives on the land? Who benefits from the produce produced by its fields? Who can enter and leave the property freely?" However, spiritual ownership and claim over the land is of a different kind. It invites us to ask, who feels responsible for the growth and productivity of this land? Who loves the land? And who takes pride and joy from it? It is this type of ownership, this second type of ownership, that walking through the land inspires and reinforces. This type of ownership can be cultivated and experienced independent of the legal question of who is the physical owner of the land. This type of ownership is a choice that we make. As children of Abraham, we are called to walk through the land in order to cultivate this type of owning, this spiritual ownership, in order to be the kind of people who look at the land and are inspired by it and want to continue to cultivate a relationship of responsibility and affection towards it. Responsibility and affection go hand in hand for Jews worldwide when we think of Israel. We think of its struggle. And yes, we have some very romanticized memories. Think of that wonderful film, Exodus, which promoted much of that romance of young, handsome people fighting and dying and living, redeeming the land, redeeming the Jewish people from the horrors of the Holocaust, from centuries of persecution. It's a great story. Some of it is even true. Some of it, yes, is a little romanticized. However, Israel as a nation has arisen, has revived the language of Hebrew and given it a new life, a new incarnation as a living language, drawing on all of our history, thousands of years, from the Bible, Tanakh, from the Talmud, from the medieval rabbinic literature, law codes, but poetry as well, all the way up to the modern period where 20th century writers and poets in Israel draw on this deep, deep well of linguistic background as well as personal experience. And their writings, their work is multi-layered and so rich because of this. So we treasure Israel. And whatever we do, wrote Albert Einstein, whatever we do for the land of Israel, we do it for the honor and the well-being of the whole Jewish people. That sense of Klal Yisrael, the entirety of the Jewish people, to whom we belong, who nurture us, who made it possible for us to be who we are, our sense of Judaism, our sense of creativity, yes, argumentation, our sense of humor. It's all part of who we are. It is baked in through our generations, and Israel is very much an ingredient in that recipe. In 1897, that crazy man, Theodor Herzl, said, if you will it, it can happen. And he said this to the World Zionist Organization at their first meeting, and they laughed at him. He said, in 50 years, it could be real. If you will it, if that's what you want. And don't you know, 50 years later, November of 1947, the United Nations voted to partition what had been the British mandate of Palestine into an Arab state and a Jewish state. And even though for many that is still not a settled question, 50 years after Herzl's crazy prediction, there was Israel. Im tirtzu. If you will it, it is no dream. And the dream has been realized to be a free people in our own land. People who worked the soil, people who reclaimed the land itself, people who gave physical form to that spiritual yearning and that spiritual ownership that Professor Weiss refers to, and that many, many Jews still feel. Israel. The 20th century Zionist A.D. Gordon wrote, at times you imagine that you too are taking root in the soil you are digging. Like all that is growing around, you are nurtured by the light of the sun's rays with food from heaven. You feel that you too live a life in common with the tiniest blade of grass. With each flower, each tree, you live deeply in the heart of nature, rising up from all and growing straight up into the expanse of the world. And for those of you who have been to Israel, you know how that feels. There is no place like it. Israel, it is our touchstone. It is so much of who we are. We say it every year at our Passover Seder, next year in Jerusalem. Next year, that for centuries upon centuries was an ideal, a hope, and an inspiration, and realized in our lifetimes. Probably most of us today were not alive before Israel was a sovereign country. So we don't remember personally the struggles. We don't remember the struggles either politically or socially or physically, what people went through to establish Israel. We must remember. We must not take those struggles for granted. We must remember what it cost to establish Israel and rejoice. Rejoice in the beautiful land that it is, green, with vineyards, green, with wildflowers. And this is the time of year when everything is coming into bloom. Even the majesty of the Negev, the desert wilderness, is so beautiful. This is our Israel. This is the land that lives in our hearts. And so Jeremiah prophesied, Ko Amar Adonai, thus said Adonai, restrain your voice from weeping, your eyes from shedding tears. For there is a reward for your labor, declares Adonai. They shall return from the enemy's land, and there is hope for your future, declares Adonai. Your children return to their country. And yes, Israel's a personal challenge, as Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote. It's a personal religious challenge, a personal religious issue, a call to every one of us as an individual, a call which one cannot answer vicariously. The ultimate meaning of the state of Israel must be seen in terms of the vision of the prophets like Jeremiah. The redemption of all, the religious duty of the Jew is to participate in the process of continuous redemption. Continuous redemption. In seeing that justice prevails over power, that awareness of God penetrates human understanding. That awareness of being holy, of being part of a holy people in a holy place, permeates, or should permeate, our association with Israel, either physically or spiritually. We have an identity. We pray, open the gates. Pitchu li, open the gates of righteousness for me. And we refer to Jerusalem, the gateway to God, the gateway to our history, to our identity, to our language of Hebrew that links us with generations and generations and generations and generations. Eliezer ben Yehuda, who is regarded as the father of modern Hebrew, wrote that the people has an unlimited potential. From the day it came into the world to this very day, its career has been a succession of miracles. In history, it's Torah and religion, and indeed, the people as a whole are all marvels. It is therefore not beyond the power of this people again, as once before in the days of King Cyrus, to effect the miracle of awakening to life even after its death, and to revive the language that died with it. And so we have. Hebrew is a living language. Hebrew is alive and responsive to today's world. Ben Yehuda was part of a group who, in their determination to revive Hebrew, documented and created dictionaries and formed a committee under the British mandate, a language committee, avad, the Hebrew word for committee. And once Israel became a sovereign nation, that committee became a government agency that still functions to increase Hebrew vocabulary, to document the history of the revival of Hebrew, to make it accessible to all of us. The Hebrew, we say, as Ben Yehuda has said to us, l'chaim, to life, to the life of the language, to the life of the land, to the life of the people. Let Hebrew be, let Israel be, even with all of its faults, even with all of its struggles, its contradictions. It's often said in Israel these days that if you come to Israel to visit and you leave confused, then you've been there. And if you don't leave confused, you haven't really been there. It's that complicated. It's that challenging. It's that exciting. Israel has extended its hand to Jews all over the world, extended a hand of welcome, a hand of rescue, a hand of life, absorbing far more than her share of immigrants in any other society. Russians, Iraqis, Iranian Jews, Syrians, Africans, Argentinians. Israel has taken them all in and forged a very complex but very rich identity as a people. This is the Israel we celebrate on its 72nd anniversary. This is the Israel that gives us heartburn and joy. This is the Israel of our people. And it's our responsibility to see ourselves as part of the entirety of the Jewish people, of Klal Yisrael, the whole of Israel. Oh my God, keep these safe. The honey and the sting, the bitter and the sweet, and our baby daughter. The burning flame, the pure water, and the man running home from afar. Keep all of these safe, my God. The honey and the sting, the bitter and the sweet. Do not uproot what has been planted. Do not forget the hope. Return me, and I will return to the good land. Return and return. We keep coming back. And that is one of the reasons why we are still here. We keep coming back. Rabbi Chaim Stern wrote, "In one land especially we glimpsed the rays of a new dawn, the land of Zion made ready for habitation by generations of pioneers." There used to be a song that I learned to sing when I was a child, that it is the pioneers, the chalutzim, that make Israel blossom, who work the land, and bring it back. The great day came, Israel independent at last, wrote Chaim Stern. The millennial dream, a dream no more, drawn by its brightness. Her children flocked to Israel from distant lands of despair, and they found hope. Though bent in mourning, they plowed the earth deep so that grain would grow tall, and so it has. And they restored the land to its fruitfulness. They began themselves to be restored. Israel lives, a people home again, rooted in its soil, its way of life, its ancient faith, and in so rooting those pioneers also restored the rest of us as Jews. A sense of dignity that we did not know. And so I finish with a prayer, of course. And I encourage you to also look on YouTube, where our music director, Debbie Anderson, has recorded and presented some songs that go with Yom Ha-Atzma'ut, and shared her beautiful voice with us on this day. Avinu Shabashamayim, O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath your wings, the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel, and establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Bless the state of Israel. Blessings for the Jewish people as we support and draw sustenance from her. Blessings on this day. May you be blessed to be part of this people, part of this spiritual ownership of this holy, holy land.